It is true. Little boys are very forgiving. They can squabble and fight and carry on, but in a day or so it's all better, and I appreciate that about them. They're a good bunch. When it comes to us adults, though, boy, it's a different story. You know, we're much less likely to be as forgiving and easygoing, and that's where I liked last week. They set this series up with this topic of why forgive. Let's put it right down to brass tacks. What's the point here? Why are we doing this? And there's not a whole lot in the scriptures and the writings that give you a detailed pros and cons list of forgiving or not. So you don't have a whole lot of doctrine to work with. So we tried to go down the path of saying, well, look, at just on a scientific, on a level here, we can see from research that forgiving is good for you. It's lowers your blood pressure, it makes you feel better, you can do tasks better. We had all these different things that physically and spiritually made you better off by forgiving. And so while I know that you guys took all that and went with it and changed your lives accordingly, the reality is some of you may not have. And it's a setup for this week to say, okay, forgive others. Forgive others. Now that you've got all this information about why you should do it, let's go ahead and actually start working on it. And this is a much harder thing, because theoretically, even if you nodded along last week and said, yep, that sounds all good, yep, now you've actually got to do it. And look, we've all had bad things happen to us. You can't live long in life without having somebody mistreat you, do you wrong. I mean, these boys are 10 years old or so, and they're all saying, yeah, something's gone wrong to me. Nothing major, mind you. But things happen, and as they get older and, a girl's going to treat them poorly or break their heart, or some friend's going to betray them, and there's going to be bigger issues for them to forgive. It stinks, but it's part of life. As long as we're in relationships, there's going to be opportunities to get hurt. That's just it. So, if you look around this room, we've all had opportunities to be hurt, whether it be hurt by a spouse or hurt by a parent or a coworker or feeling abandoned in life. I mean, there's plenty of things that people can point to and say, yep, even though I had a pretty good life overall, this area here didn't work out well for me. And so what can happen to us is, even though we have all these reasons as to why forgiveness is something that we should do, we don't. Somewhere there's this disconnect between saying, yeah, I know I should do it. This is not a new topic. Every one of you has been in this building before. You've been told you should forgive other people. This is not news. And yet in some part of your life, you might be holding on to something that you need to let go of. You know you should. You know the benefits of it, and you don't. And it's a trap. It's a trap. Because we start saying to ourselves, well, if I forgive them, then they got away with something. Or if I forgive them, that means that the justice didn't happen. That's not fair. You've got to keep your trust in the Lord that He says, I'm going to take care of this. Every unfair thing that happens is not going unnoticed. It's not fair, but I'll take care of it. We don't need to take the law into our own hands. We've got to let the Lord take the law into His own hands and let Him deal with all the problems and all the things that have been done you wrong. Because I know it's happened. It happens to all of us. You've just got to let the Lord be your vindicator. And I know it's hard to do. I saw this for years with my mom. My mom was a very easygoing person. She was pretty happy with life. Had a good marriage, happy family. But the trouble she had was from her childhood. Her dad physically and verbally abused her and her other two siblings. She was so abused by him that at 8th grade, she just picked up and ran away from home. Went to live with her grandmother, who was not far away, but she left. And it was interesting to see her as a kid, because back probably she's probably 35 years old or so at the time, we had a computer, and she loved this computer because she could just type away and vent about her dad on this computer and then just delete it. There was no record of it, just a big, get it all out of my system and let it go. Drove my dad crazy in a sense because, I remember him saying, look, he's 1,000 miles away from here. We don't see him. We don't hear from him. We are clear out of his life. Let it go. Let it go. But there was something in her that wanted that connection. She wanted to have a good connection with her father. And every time she went back, it was this nasty cycle of hope that something can change, hope that we can have a normal relationship, and then the anger and the frustration of it not happening. And it ate her up inside. And it was terrible to watch. And while she, on a normal basis, you wouldn't have known about these things, but we could all see the physical toll it would take on her. And it was no good. It was like she was falling into this trap of, I need this to be right. I want this to be right. This isn't fair. Look at the things you've done. Can't you see how you did these things wrong? And it just ended up. Sometimes you've just got to run away from those situations and stay away. You can't seek justice on these things. It's just not going to work out. And so when we look to the scripture stories and we see how the Lord unfolds these things, we see that, there are a lot of stories where people do terrible things, and they end up being forgiven. We have David, King David, right? Steals another man's wife, has the husband sent out to battle and killed so he can steal her away. Oh, why did he steal her away? Oh, because he impregnated her before anything else happened. I mean, this guy, you're like, whoa. We did the story with the kids a year or so ago, checking off all the commandments broken in the course of one chapter. Does the Lord forgive him? Yeah. Does David amend his ways? Yep. Does he know he's done wrong? Yep. Does the Lord take care of these things? Sure does. And we need to kind of have that attitude of believing that the Lord can take care of these problems for us. That all we have to worry about is ourselves and not try to be the judge and jury and executioner on everybody else in the world. Because, again, as we talked about last week, forgiveness comes with its benefits, and unforgiveness has its price. It's probably not something I'd advertise, but at the same time, I think that, my mom, she died of cancer. She had cancer twice in her life, and I think that cancer was fed by this problem with her dad, because it was just this underground current that was just affecting her body. And first time she was able to surgically have it done, but the second time it was still there, and it was there to the day she died. And I think we miss that connection, which isn't to say everybody who has cancer has daddy issues, but I think the two have a power in that we don't give enough attention to. That negative emotions feed negative health in our body. When we look at other stories in the Bible about forgiveness, other than David, we have the story of Joseph. I mean, this is the ultimate story of forgiveness. We look about the things that have been done wrong to us, and we think, okay, a lover didn't treat me right, or a dad didn't treat me right, or somebody didn't treat me right. Well, what happened to Joseph, right? His brothers sold him into slavery, and he ends up in prison, and he gets betrayed by his fellow inmates. I mean, it's just one bad thing after another. And he's in prison, of course, for a crime he didn't commit. Boy, think of the anger you could hold against those brothers. And you know how this story goes. Famine in the land, Joseph's in power in Egypt, has all the food. The brothers come looking for food. They buy it from Joseph, not realizing it's their brother. But then Joseph has the big reveal. Joseph says to his brothers, I am Joseph. Does my father still live? But the brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence. And Joseph said to his brothers, "Please come near to me." So they came near. "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But now, do not therefore be grieved or be angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years, the famine has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing or harvesting. And God sent me before you to preserve the posterity for you in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Hurry, go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen. You shall be near to me, you and your children, your children's children, your flocks, your herds, and all that you have. They will provide for you, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, for there are still 5 years of famine. And behold, your eyes and your eyes of my brother Benjamin see that it is my mouth that speaks to you. So you shall tell my father all of the glory in Egypt, and all that you have seen, and you shall hurry and bring my father down here.'" I mean, this is an amazing story. I mean, this is truly, I mean, look, if you remember how this starts off, he has this dream of the stars bowing down to him and the sheaves bowing down. And the brothers get all upset and they say, "What? You think we're all going to bow to you? You think you're so great?" And that's what kind of catapults them into this gambit of selling him into slavery. I mean, could you do what Joseph did? I mean, Joseph could have very easily said, well, I had a dream that they're going to bow to me, and by golly, I'm going to make sure it happens. I know it's the future. They're going to bow to me, and I'm going to get them back no matter what it takes. Justice will be served. I'm going to sell them into slavery. Right. Couldn't he have done something like that in Egypt? Oh, this plays out, and they come to him. "Oh, guess what, guys? You want food? No, I want you out in the fields. You're now my slaves. Bow before me." He could have had a very different response to this. But he sees where his life has guided him. I think about my mom and I go, well, could she have done that? Could she have said, to heck with you? I'm a from you. You've actually done me all right, because without your stuff, I wouldn't have gone, and I wouldn't have met my husband, blah, 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 just played it on through. But sometimes we just kind of don't feel like the things that are given to us as the result of something bad happening, where God brings that good thing out of it, somehow qualifies as the vindication that we seek in the first place. And that's what we're after, is justice. Well, the justice is the restoration. Justice isn't the bad thing happening to somebody else. Justice is you being restored. I said to the kids that one of the experiences I had in life was somebody not paying me back money. I was probably 20 years old. There was this girl I worked with at the auto parts store. She was a few years older than me. Couldn't make her car payment. Car was about to be repossessed. So people kept going around the store saying, "Hey, does anybody have a few $100s they can loan her to pay her, to help her keep her car a little bit longer?" And for some dumb reason, I said, yeah, all right. And I'm pretty sure it was $400 I loaned her that never came back. And it was funny because it was about a year or so later, Jen and I had gone on a date to Atlantic City, and I won like $700 playing roulette. I've never been that lucky in gambling before or since. And I've always regarded that as, that's God paying me back the $400 that Debbie never paid me back. It's like, oh, this is evening out the score here. This is all right. I got a little bit of interest to go with it too. How about that? And I've been able to actually let go of that lost money as a result. And I think that's what we need to do, is say, all right, well, you gave me. Somebody took, you gave me back. All right, even I'm letting that go. I'm letting that go. God has restored me. And it says throughout all the scriptures, God will give you back more than what was taken from you originally. And I feel like that's worked out pretty well for me. Interestingly, I think while you might be familiar with this part of the Joseph story that we've done so far, the next reading of this story is after Jacob dies. All right, so they've been in Egypt for a while. Jacob, the father of all these brothers, dies, and now the brothers are scared once again. Listen to this. When Joseph's brothers saw their father was dead, they said, "Perhaps Joseph will hate us and may actually repay us for all the evil which we did to him." So they sent messengers to Joseph, saying, "Before your father died, he commanded, saying, 'Thus you shall say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the trespasses of your brothers and their sin, for the evil they did to you. Now please forgive the trespass of the servants of God of your father.' And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Then his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, 'Behold, we are your servants.' Joseph said to them, 'Do not be afraid, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to save many people alive. Now therefore don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones.' And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them." These guys are still carrying around the guilt. They've had the big reveal. Everything's been going well. And now that Dad's dead, now is the hammer going to drop now? What are we going to do? And when I read that Joseph wept, it's just like, he's like, guys, you just don't get it. I appreciate it, but you just don't get it. And his line, "Do not be afraid, for am I in the place of God?" I mean, that's hard. I mean, he gets it. It's like when we refuse to forgive, are we saying that we are above God? Is that what we're doing? Joseph's like, no. I'm not seeking retribution. It's just going to be between you and God. We're fine. But if we don't forgive, we're playing God. It's hard to kind of chew on that, but that's what it comes down to. For those who, would like some comfort that justice is done, we have from this story, Secrets of Heaven 65:59. And it references this last little bit of the Genesis 50 reading we had, where it says about the brothers being scared about the evil being returned to them. And this is what the writings have to say about evil which is repaid to him. He says that means, it symbolizes that a punishment as merited is therefore impending. All right, so they've done something bad and they go, there is this impending punishment. And it's talking about what happens in the world of spirits. It says, if in the world of spirits, evil spirits do anything evil that exceeds the evil they assimilated by the life they led in the world, those who administer punishment become present in an instant and chastise those spirits in exact accord with the degree of their transgression. For the rule in the next life is that no one should become more evil than he had been in the world. Those who suffer punishment have no knowledge at all of how the ones who administer such punishment know that the evil they do exceeds what they assimilated in the world. But they are told that the nature of order in the next life is that such evil itself carries its own punishment. So the evil is committed is completely bound up with the evil inflicted as punishment. That is, the evil itself within the evil itself lies its own punishment. It is therefore in keeping with order that those who repay with punishment should be instantly present. When evil is done, it's not the victim who has to punish. It's somebody else who comes in and takes care of that. The Lord's got this really magnificent system all worked out. All you got to do is sit back, forgive, move on. The Lord says, I will take care of those people. There are other folks who that's their job is to do that. The next little paragraph says the same thing about hell and saying how, in the hell thing happens there. But what I want to leave you with is on the back is this little paragraph about good spirits. Because sometimes I think we take some of these things a little too far and we think, oh, well, we need to punish everybody. But that's what it says about good spirits. As for good spirits, if by chance they utter what is evil or do what is evil, they are not punished, but are pardoned and also free from blame. For it is not their intention to utter what is evil or to do what is evil. And they know that such evil words and deeds were aroused in them by hell, and for that reason were not their own fault. The fact that this can also be recognized from their action against that evil and subsequent grief. So good spirits, they do bad things too. But everybody lets it go. We forgive it. We let it go. If somebody's truly evil, they'll get the punishment they need for the amendment they need. And that's the difference. If they need a punishment, if they need amendment, they'll get it. But it's not our job to go out seeking that amendment. The Lord will take care of that for us. Our job is to be like Joseph. Joseph represents that highest state of being, that celestial state. Be like Joseph. Be forgiving. Be magnanimous. See all the good that God's brought into your life. See that the vindication has already happened. You don't need to go out and seek it. Amen.